Hello, my name is T-Break. Today we're talking about Path of Exile 2, Electric Boogaloo. Now, I probably saw I don't know, like 10 videos, hour-long videos where people would just read over the patch notes. You can read over yourself, not a big deal. But here's something that I think everyone missed. Everyone missed. It was right in front of everyone, but y'all all missed it, all right? On the video, the third edict content reveal, I want you to take a close look at this dual string bow. There's something a little different about it, right? They had your focus here, the Well of Souls and all that. What the hell is this? 3 additional arrows implicit. They didn't talk about this. I don't know if this is a bugged item, a dev item, or if there are mechanics in game that will allow such an item to drop. I'm assuming if it is actually part of the game, we're gonna have +3 bolts. So galvanic shards, we're eating, right? We're eating. Yeah, this is crazy, crazy, crazy. And so, if true, if real, probably applies to other implicits as well, right? And so, leveraging implicits as a whole, I haven't really looked at all the base types, but just I saw this pop up and I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck was that, right? So, very interesting, very cool. Now, let's actually talk about this league here. All right. So the pros, everything out is amazing. I agree with almost every design choice made. All right. So and I don't do that often. I really don't. But this was almost every single design choice was absolutely excellent. Everything that was directly focused on was made objectively better. I look forward to playing it on the 29th. I'll talk about the cons. All right. So the first thing on the list for the cons, I didn't see any Atlas tree changes. No mention of it, nothing in the notes, nothing in the video. All right. And this has kind of been a dilemma that's existed in Path of Exile for years, right? Where it's like, is this actually a new and interesting endgame or farm? Or is it just leveraging map mod effect, quantity, rarity, monster count, and stuff like that, right? To make it more simple, is this actually new content or is number just bigger, right? Is loot just more just because they set the number that high, right? For me personally, I find this very boring, right? I don't like this at all. I enjoy when there are new mechanics synergizing with each other. And Abyss, to a great extent, will do that. And don't get me wrong, I love getting more loot as well, but it just feels stale, right? Uh, back in Path of Exile 1 and during Necropolis League, there was an Atlas keystone called Back to Basics, which would just give you a random roll between 0 to 80% more map modifier effect. And the meta became you would run a map called Fortress, which had barrels in it, and there was a map mod effect, or there was just a map mod that could roll on it, that would just add extra barrels to your map. And what you would do is you would just run those maps and just cross your fingers to just get a lot of map modifier effect. The number is very big. You get like 600 quant on a map, you get like 800% more currency, and you just go around breaking barrels, right? So that is very rewarding gameplay, but it's not fun, right? It's not engaging content. It's not like, sure, it's new, but it's really just the number's just bigger, right? It's not actually new. It's not actually, exciting and inspires imagination. And I think that's a very important thing when it comes to an Atlas tree or any skill tree, where players have the agency to explore and wonder, and having the agency of imagination, and having meta strats not even be discovered for weeks or months in, right? That I think is, if such a system if it could be set up to allow that to happen, then it's a perfect system, really. Because you don't want, even in Path of Exile 1, it's like every strategy you see, it's like, is this a new strategy, or is this just, half the tree is spent, half your skill points are spent on scaling map mod effect? Very boring, very stale. It's kind of like the illusion of choice, where it's like, well, would you rather take the bread or the key kind of thing, most of the time you just take the bread. But anyways, so didn't see Atlas tree changes. Would like to see Atlas tree changes, right? Would like to see them be a bit more impactful, a bit more significant. All right, let's move on to point number 2. Don't forget that tablets are still in the game. This is by far the thing that upset me the most in Path of Exile 2, which was the advocacy of having tablets in the game at all, right? There seems to be someone at GGG, I don't know who, I don't know who it is, but he's an absolute bastard. He keeps trying to add circles into the game when things should be square. We had this back when we had, I don't know, Sextants of Path of Exile 1. We had this, in so many cases throughout the history of the game, circles keep getting added when they should be squares, right? They should be squares and in the form of tablets or in the form of scarabs, right? Scarabs are an objectively better way to play the game. And if you don't know what a scarab is, you're a Path of Exile 2 player. Scarabs and Path of Exile 1 are just an item that you use to augment your map. It's a one-time use item, and you get a whole bunch of them, right? And that's what those extra slots in your map device are for, right? So it's only a matter of time before they remove tablets and they add scarabs, but it doesn't look like that's going to be in this patch. Yeah, this just needs to go, right? And the thing is, it's like, okay, let's say tablets are still kept in the game. Scarabs aren't introduced yet. What I would like to see is that all tablet mods should become more balanced in terms of power, right? The 7% quantity tablet is simply so impactful, right? It's not even, there is no choice. It's again, the illusion of choice, right? Where it's like, well, would you like to get more gold in your map? The experience one is nice because you could argue that that's a valid decision to make. But like, getting more monsters or whatever, it's like, it's kind of whatever, man. You get one additional clasped hand. Like, what are we talking about here, bro? It's all about the quant. Quant is simply so effective that it completely undermines all the decision making, the majority of the decision making, when it comes to your tablets. Now, granted, this is improved with a new trading, but still, acquiring these tablets, everyone's gonna be competing for them. Everyone's gonna be fighting to try to get these tablets, and kind of feels bad. Kind of feels bad. Another preference would be to see tablet mods no longer have ranges, right? If they were all 5% quantity tablets, well, then it becomes trading them much easier, right? You're not going to have to haggle or price differently for your 6% or your 3% tablets. And let's be honest, man, a 3% quantity tablet just sucks, right? It's just simply not good if you can have, what is it, like a 2.33 multiplier on the roll to get like a 7% quant, right? So if they can all have static ranges, just make a 5% quant for all of them, make it 10% rarity for all of them, 12% rare monsters. That'd make it much, much better. But let's say, aside from the balance of tablets being a little out of line, 60% of the time is spent pathing towards 2 to 3 tower overlaps, right? So this is terrible. This is arguably the worst part of the game. It's a very harsh criticism, but it's true. And the thing is that, well, you're running maps that are inherently, they're not as rewarding, and you're just trying to get through them as fast as possible. And so you're kind of incentivized to not really juice them, not really get all the, map mods on them. You're incentivized to just literally like kill all the rare monsters, go next, kill all the rare monsters, go next. And it feels like you're kind of rushing. And then once it's like while you're doing this, you just have this constant feeling of FOMO that you're not playing efficiently, right? Now it's not about like, because I understand that there's the FOMO of like, oh well, other people are running more meta strat like party play and whatnot, and that might be upsetting to like a solo play player. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about even in your own objective self experience, or subjective, I would say, but it's an objective experience when you know that, well, one map is going to drop 1x to loot, and maybe 15 maps down the line it's going to be dropping 3x to loot, right? I understand that having a little bit of like a push and pull kind of thing, it can be good for player retention, it can be good for the session, but it's the duration of this push and pull is just so extreme, right? I would rather have all of my maps just be affected by like 2 tablets rather than fuck around with like one tablet or no tablet for a whole bunch of maps and then get like, oh, I luck into 3 or maybe sometimes 4 tablets. It would be crazy. But really though, like I would much rather just have like just 2 tablets, and you just put in the map device and it affects X amount of maps. That would be amazing, because then I know if I have like 20 or 30 minutes to play the game, I know I can actually get some like relatively good loot, modest loot, guaranteed. Still lots of variance within the loot engine in Path of Exile. Still lots of variance within the maps and the monsters and the mechanics that are going to be on those maps. So it'll still be very engaging, but I won't just have this like, thought in the back of my head that like, okay, well, this map's just dropping 1/3 of the loot of like a map I'm going to run in like 10, 15 maps, right? Now, the other obstacle with towers and tablets is that once your tower is set up, you're going to start to giga juice your maps, which means delirium, which means the what is it, like the veiled map mods that we're gonna be having, which means your chance of death, it starts to go up quite a bit, and you're only gonna have 1 portal or 0 extra portals, if you will. Dying in your Giga Juice maps is so punishing. It is so extremely punishing because you effectively lose 20 to 30 minutes of effort when you factor in the time spent in the setup, right? So this the it's just a very very frustrating thing. Um, and of course, skill issue, get good, don't die, but shit happens, right? And you shouldn't be punished so extremely, and forfeiting such, like, let's say you have the perfect setup, you did all that hard work just to like lose a map, just to like some random thing, maybe like a bug or lag or whatever, right? Very, very frustrating. I'd like to see this be addressed in the next patch for sure. Hey man, there's still a week left before the release, so who knows? Maybe they'll get they'll do something about this during this 0.3. All right, on to the next point. Party play is still extremely efficient considering the tablet and map costs, right? So your cost basis for running the maps is just simply so much lower. And when you factor in the new veiled map mods and the high-end deli juice, well, many players will be priced out of that if they aren't running party play. And so um, this just kind of feels bad, right? We have this problem to a great extent in Path of Exile 1 as well. But in Path of Exile 1, you have lots of very valid solo play strategies that are extremely competitive with party play giga juicing. And so I just don't really see that in Path of Exile 2. You could argue ritual, it can be like that, same with expedition and some other stuff. But like when it comes to breach, and I'm sure when it comes to the abysses, right, party play is going to be absolutely unreal. And you're going to get more of the currencies to allow more of your maps to be veiled and have those higher quality mods. You're going to be able to just have a bigger budget. The other issue with party play is that if some players die, other players will still be able to clear the map, right? This is a huge advantage for solo play, where you might be spending, several hours, you can do your whole setup, you die, you lose the whole map. If you die in party play, it's not a big deal. Yeah, okay, you get a little bit less loot in the map, but you still are able to, actually get rewards, and you don't just forfeit the whole map. Loot funneling into carries is nasty. This is simply just the nature of the game. I totally get it. But it is kind of something to be said, right? Especially in early league, this becomes a massive advantage if you just give all of the rewards from your party play, you funnel it into one player. When players build, they're able to just clear the whole map, no problem. And then you get two players. Yes, if it's one player, they're gonna still be affected by this. You can have all the aura bots fending for themselves, but loot funneling kind of nasty, but no real way to go around it. So it's kind of whatever. It's more of a just like a personal thing. And grave binds extremely difficult to compete with. Simply true. Simply true. They're just going to get more and better currencies, rares, unique items, T0s. Very difficult to compete with when you combine all of these factors. Yeah, I don't really know how a solo player will be able to compete. All right, number 4, Exalted Orbs and the lack of meaningful sync for them. So as players progress into endgame, they will find more and more Exalted and Divine Orbs and other currencies as well. But this becomes more of an issue, in particular for Exalted Orbs. Right now on 0.2, I looked at the exchange. It's like 2.5K Exalted Orbs for one Divine. And one Divine, it's like 4,000 Divines for a mirror. It was a crazy numbers. Crazy, crazy, crazy numbers. And it makes it so that like, you know, like and the reason it's like this is because as you juice your maps more and more, you're gonna find so many more exalted orbs, that you can't even spend all of them reasonably, right? Each map requires at most only 3 exalts, and players will run out of things to slam. We need more things to slam. We need more vendor trades, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm absolutely wrong about this. Maybe I'm tweaking. If there's 10,000 wisdom scrolls dropping per map, the solution isn't giving players 10,000 items to identify. The real solution is hide wisdom scrolls on your filter, right? So maybe this is an intended, progression curve. But personally, I think like exalted orbs are meant to be somewhat valuable, and they are valuable. You do use them all the time, but the amount that you're able to acquire, relative to the amount that you're able to spend at the top end is it's very asymmetrical, right? Very asymmetrical. Now, some potential solutions could be to drop fewer lower tier currencies like exalts and party play, right? Keep the high end as it is. They're doing party play. You don't want to touch that. You would like to keep it in the game as is. Absolutely, fair enough. But maybe just don't drop as many Exalt, don't drop as many of these lower tier currencies, and instead of giving a more currency multi, give an increased upgrade chance, right? So Path of Exile 2, it runs on a currency like upgrade system, right? You have different brackets of currencies and they roll to upgrade. That's what rarity does. That's what map mod effect or map rarity does. That's what, like the monsters on the modifiers on a monster do. Just increase that upgrade chance, right? So that like the odds of getting like a mirror or whatever in party play or divines would still be like as it is right now, but there just aren't as many exalted orbs dropping because I'm quite confident that like with like a 6-man setup giga juicing, players are dropping like groups are dropping 200-300 exalted orbs a map. Right, I don't have a data for this. I just kind of made it up, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised when I was running 3-player party play, I was getting like around like 80 to 90 Exalted Orbs a map, and that wasn't on a most efficient setup, right? On a very, very efficient setup with grave binds and everything, I'm quite confident it's pushing 200 to 300 Exalted a map, and that magnitude of Exalted Orbs is just, well, there's no world where those can all be spent at the same pace that they're being generated. Another potential solution would be to add unique interactions for certain items. So base types that reroll mods when exalted, allowing them to be spammable. Like a Simplex amulet, only 2 suffixes, 100% increased explosive effect, right? Just give us things that can be spammable with exalted orbs. I was thinking maybe even like you could have like an Atlas keystone that would say that like, strong boxes can have up to 12 modifiers and you can just exalt your strong boxes. But of course, that's kind of like a feedback loop, right? Where it would likely actually result in more exalted orbs dropping because your strong box is now giga juiced, right? And so I think the best solution isn't to actually touch exalted orbs in regards to anything that's within maps or maps at all, but rather just add things outside of maps, such as like reinvesting into gear and just more spammable options, lotto mechanics, gambles and stuff like that, just to get them kind of out of the game. There's just simply way too many of them dropping at the top end. All right, number 5, we got divine orbs. All right, the average player will likely never use even a single divine orb. They might use one just to see what it does, and they realize it doesn't do much on their +1 wand. It simply isn't rewarding enough to do so. High variance unique items are only justifiable to divine if the base is expensive, right? Otherwise, it's like you might as well just buy a higher divined one. I would like to see more variance in the unique items, right? So for example, I don't even know if it's still in the game, but like, actually, no, it is. It is. So like, let's say like I can't remember the name of it, but it's a unique jewel that makes it so that notables can have up to +12 spirit per notable. If that, the range is like +8 to +12. If the range was like maybe like +4 to +12, you would see a lot more divines being spent. And it's a difficult mod to get, right? And that again, that sort of variance would justify the just across the board, it would really justify the usage of divine orbs. Same goes with like high variance in jewels. So right now, lots of mods on jewels, they'll roll like 5 to 15% or 10 to 20%. It's relatively a high range, but you really do want to have 4 perfect explicits to justify the divining, so that it's actually like an expensive base in the first place. Otherwise, you would just use that money you would use those orbs to just buy a very high quality jewel, right? Well, no points like divining like a three explicit jewel. That's like three good explicits for your build. And generally speaking, the variance in rare items isn't high enough to ever really justify divining them, right? So let's talk about some potential solutions. Increase the modifier ranges on rare items to justify divining them, right? So if a T1 plus skill gems on wands was instead +4 to 5 instead of like just a +5, that would be, an extra divine that we spent here and there. Very good. And across the board, when you have lots and lots of items that actually need a little bit of divining, not like a crazy high amount, but just a little bit when it's a really, really good item, that would have a very, very healthy effect on the game. And it would have a healthy effect on the progression curve as well. So same goes to stuff like +2 arrows, +2 bolts. Again, these are all very high-end items, but that's what at the point in time, like when you're actually acquiring these items, you will have the budget for it, and it becomes a very small cost, a little extra upgrade that you would do is very rewarding to divine, and it doesn't take a lot of divines to hit it either, right? Even if you're very unlucky, it's like let's say you spent 3 divines to go from +4 to +5. 12.5% chance, right? But that's still to like fail it, you know. But that's still like a reasonable expense, you know. Other solutions could be to add a greater variance and overlaps in roll ranges. So for example, T1 resistance could be plus 25 to plus 45, right? Just having greater ranges in general, especially with like, let's say like fizz damage, right? Flat fizz, hybrid fizz, percent fizz, expand the ranges, make them have a little bit of overlap. I understand it's kind of can be a bit difficult for like the trade API, because we just right now, I mean, you're not actually searching for exact mods, you're searching for values. But regardless, I think having expanded ranges would again justify divining items for even like the average player, which is what kind of needs to happen. We could have meta mods, we cannot change suffixes, cannot change prefixes, can have multi-mod, you know, all that kind of stuff from Path of Exile 1. It seems to not be the direction that Path of Exile 2 is going, and that's fine, right? But just felt like it was worth tossing it out there. Even if it's not like a crafting bench, you know, just having like dedicated like meta mod crafting bench, I think could be valid, especially considering that historically, these meta mods were the divine sync. Like this is where divines went. This is what they were used for, far more than than like just re-rolling the numerical values on numbers. Then you can have, I don't know, this is a bit out there, right? New uniques, rare mods, bases that are augmented with divines, one div syncs, right? Kind of just like you would just upgrade it. It costs one divine, you hit it, it upgrades. That just becomes like a very small sync, but across the board, it will add up, especially if that, like, let's say that unique item is then to be corrupted. This could be a very significant divine sync. You can add vendor mechanics where divines reroll quality or sockets on items, a high-end sync. So this is like with the up to 30% quality or up to +2 or +3 sockets that we're going to be getting in 0.3. Having a, I don't know, some kind of special bench where you could just choose to reroll the quality or reroll the sockets and cross your fingers and try to get like a high quality base or high socket item would be a very, very valid high-end sync, especially even if you're like mirror crafting or whatever, right? Trying to get like a perfect base or a perfect item. It kind of alleviates the obstacle of, well, let's say, well, would you rather have like a 30% quality base and then just gamble on the fracture, or would you rather secure the fracture and then gamble on the 30% quality, you know? So it seems like this might actually be a not bad, you know, although very expensive and very difficult. You know, I think it should have like the same probability or like maybe just slightly better probability when it comes to rolling them. But like, I think this could be actually like a very valid high-end sync. Let's talk about Hinekora locks, potential balance issues. Historically, metacrafted mods, stuff like suffix can't be changed, prefix can't be changed. There were massive divine sync as players would have to hit 2 T1 mods to finish their prefixes or suffixes, right? So if you're a POE2 player, you didn't play POE1, what these mods would do is you could craft them on and it would take it, like let's say suffixes can't be changed is a prefix mod. You can only have 3 prefixes. And so what you would do is you would try to craft like 3 T1 suffixes. You do suffixes can't be changed, and then you're able to remove the other mods and you're able to slam exalts, do whatever. And so you could guarantee, like you were trying to get the rest of your mods to be T1, and it would preserve your other 3 T1 mods. The introduction of Hinekora locks trivialized this, as players would only have to hit just one T1 mod, and then could use locks to get the second T1 mod, right? So before, it was like you would have to literally exalt slam to hit a T1 mod twice in a row. It's very, very expensive and very difficult to do. You could spend mirrors trying to do it, especially if you're doing it on like a very crazy base with very low, you know, like an influence base with like low weight rating mods. But using locks, you can just get the first one, and then the second one comes a lot faster. It comes a lot easier, and this made it so that Divine lost a good portion of their most significant use case. Locks also made it so that you only need one of the subsequent currency, removes a small sink. So essentially, like when you have a lock, you're able to just hover over it with all kinds of different currencies. And the problem here is that you, like for example, you know, if you're played like 3.26, attribute stacking was very popular. People would use like a helical ring and they would reflect it using a reflecting mist. Granted, you don't play POE2, you're not really going to get this, but the point I'm trying to say is like, you know, on average to hit like a 5 positive helical ring, it's like 32 locks. That's a 63% chance, but you would only use one reflecting mist, you know. And so in my opinion, like it should use a reflecting mist every single time, and then you just choose to whether or not continue with the craft. Because if you're just taking out like you're taking out 32 locks and one reflecting mist, um, reflecting mist essentially become like undervalued, right? A effective and an intended sink for them was removed, and it gave locks a lot more power as well. And so, you know, the interaction, and this is like kind of what I'm trying to like dial into here. It's like the interaction between locks and the perfect essences becomes nasty, right? Because with the perfect essences that are adding, it's going to replace a random modifier and add a very, very powerful mod that in many cases you otherwise can't even get for that item type. With all the variety of perfect essences, and you got the perfect Chaos Orb and the normal Chaos Orb and the greater Chaos Orb, you're able to like click it, use one lock, right? Just one lock, and you're able to check with every single different essence and every single different Chaos Orb and every single other, I don't know, whatever currencies might exist that also has that functionality. And you're able to just like get like from one lock, you can get like effectively 10 plus attempts or maybe even 20 plus attempts. I don't know how many different like currencies can be used for this purpose. You could toss Valorbs in there too and all that other stuff. But it's like this this range of variety is simply so like you're just able to get so much value out of locks if this is true, if this is how it will work, unless it uses like a predetermined seed to choose that particular mod to remove. But still you could have like a whole bunch of different chaos orbs, and still it would just be a bit OP in my opinion. It would give a bit way too much power to locks, and I think they're going to be extremely expensive. Like you should expect them. I mean, in POE1, it's one mirror is around 3 locks. That's about the drop rate. I wouldn't be surprised if the price of locks was like half a mirror, right? If this is true, because you could simply just do so much with it, right? Number 7, Omens, right? Potential balance issue ties too much of the end game to ritual. That's like the main concern, at least for me. Personally, this is a very subjective thing. I don't really enjoy the ritual mechanic that much, right? Did a whole bunch of it in Path of Exile 1. It feels like you're rummaging through like a garbage bin, trying to get lucky, right? It just, doesn't feel that good. It's a bit too lotto for me, and it's a bit too like, push and pull, right? Where it's like I'm doing all this combat stuff, and all of a sudden I gotta like, go shopping in like a garbage bin at Goodwill or something. Not a huge fan of it, but that's just a personal gripe. However, forcing the entire player base to engage in any particular mechanic, in this case it's ritual, for access to high-end crafting materials, it feels bad, right? It feels bad. So I don't know what the solution here is. Maybe making ritual omens kind of like just drop from like other monsters every once in a while. Maybe making even like the I don't know, just like having ritual-based rewards dropping in other places of the game would be really nice. I understand that to an extent that does undermine ritual, but I don't think ritual should be having this much love towards it. It's not that lovely of a mechanic. It's actually, it's kind of stale and boring. It's just like you're just like rolling through like a shop window. It's not particularly exciting, and I think there's just a bit too much focus on it. And it's like I understand that this was like a design philosophy, right? To have like, well, omens are going to come from ritual, and it is a good design philosophy to have like each league mechanic or each piece of content to have dedicated rewards. But this is just like too powerful and too significant of a reward for any one mechanic to have, in my opinion. Now, to expand on this, locks and sanctified omens could be dangerous, right? Generally speaking, this is kind of whatever, but I mean, it's like sanctified omens as a whole. If these can be mirrored, like this is going to be just, I don't know, it's going to be kind of silly. It's going to be kind of silly. Especially like, yeah, it's going to take like, for you to hit like the 1.2, even 1.1 on like, on like all 6 mods, like that's going to be very difficult to pull off. It's going to take a lot of blocks to do that because you're essentially targeting like an upper 25% roll. Like the odds of success on that is like it's very low. It's like one in 4,000 to just get the upper 25% roll for 6 mods. Now maybe you have like plus level skill gems, stuff like that, right? So you don't really need it, but still like it's extremely difficult to hit like a very high quality sanctified divine. But if it is true, and these items can be mirrored, That's quite likely what's going to happen. I would like to see Sanctified Omens be more common, but also locks can't be used on them. That I think would be a very good trade-off. Otherwise, like the amount of high-end use cases that I'm seeing for locks is like combined with all the stuff here, like they're just a bit too much. You know, it's going to be a bit too powerful. Granted, if they are as common, you know, like only 3 times as common as mirrors, it should be kind of fine. But it's effectively going to be a currency that, well, practically no one is going to have access to them other than people who are at the very, very high end mirror crafting and RMTing a little bit, right? Anyways, omens should use more of the currency they affect. That's just a personal belief, right? If a sanctified omen, you know, it's only going to use 1 divine, but hey, it might cost you like 500 divines to just get a sanctified omen. It should use 20 divines. It should use a whole stack, right? It shouldn't just use 1 divine for like such a powerful effect, especially considering you might spend like like a mirror card that might spend multiple mirrors with sanctified omens and locks, but they're only going to spend that single 1 divine. So they should use 20 divine. They should use a bit more. And same with like Whittling of Chaos, you know, or the Omen of Whittling. You should use 20 Chaos Orbs, not just one. This kind of goes, you know, across the board, right? All of the omens should use more of the currencies that they affect, right? Fundamentally, and I think that would make it it would be a very healthy and reasonable and justifiable sync. Very small, but I think it is a reasonable expense to add into the game. Now that about covers it for this video. I'm going to be playing 3.26 in the not so distant future. 3.26 0.3. What am I talking about? I'm very excited for it, and I hope to see you guys there. All right, that's all for this video. Peace.